Hey everybody, Jeremy here from Nobot Studios. Welcome to another Grit Fantasy RPG video. Today's topic will be aspects. Now I can't believe that I haven't done a video yet on this topic. I've covered aspects before in other videos, but not specifically for aspects. After I had a conversation with Ryan a few weeks ago about the Valor aspect, and how it can be introduced into the games that you run for Grit Fantasy, I decided to do this video. I was going to just focus on Valor because I think it's this sort of hidden gem in the game. But after kind of making some notes and thinking about it, I wanted to cover all the aspects. So what I want to do is describe kind of what they are, go over each aspect, and then give player tips and GM tips for each aspect. Okay. I've got this idea of setting up prep for the GM based on aspects. So the idea is that you go over the 5 aspects and introduce a challenge for each one in your session. And this gives you the ability to sort of allow each character to shine, because characters have different strengths and weaknesses. And if you give them the opportunity to kind of use their strengths, I think it makes everybody happy. And I think that it has the ability to round out the session so it doesn't feel like all melee combat or all, just hunting for treasure or looking for traps and stuff like that, or whatever you just focus on completely, which is usually combat. So I really think this can be an interesting approach to take, is to look at the aspects. So what are the aspects? They're nothing groundbreaking from any other RPG. They are the basic stats for a character. So it's going to show the strengths and weaknesses of a character. There are 5 of them in Grit. I made it a point to do 5. I thought that breaking away from the 6 stat system that D&D was a good idea, and has been something that I had written down in my notes many, many years ago. So I think it's a really nice combination of aspects or stats for your character. So you got might, prowess, valor, insight, and command. Now the might and prowess are your physical aspects, and shown on the screen here, this is how you're going to see it on your character sheet. So might, it's kind of like shown with an M, prowess with a P, V with a valor, I with insight, and C with command. That's just sort of those letters are found on the character sheet to make it quick and more streamlined looking. It doesn't take much time to understand what they are. I can see that at first glance when you look at the character sheet, you're like, what do these letters mean? But once the GM says, oh, make a prowess roll 1 time, you're going to say, oh, P for prowess. There's no other P, so that's what I roll. So I haven't had much issue with that in the game, but anyway, that's what the kind of breakdown of these things are, like as far as what you're going to see on the character sheet. And again, might and prowess are your physical aspects. If you go to the last 2, insight and command are your mental and social aspects, and valor is right in between, and that is your resistance to both physical and mental and social potential damage. So very important aspect, actually. But I'll get to that later. So that's the 5. And I'm going to, once I kind of go over one more thing, I'm going to go through each one individually. So when you build a character, and this is covered in another video, you are given 4 points to distribute between these 5 aspects. You cannot go above 3 at any time. So 3 is the maximum. And you can't go to -2, can't go past that either, the other way. Once you allocate those 4 aspects, or +4 to the aspects, you then allocate -2 to any of the aspects that have no positive value. So that will be either -2 to 1 aspect or -1 to 2 aspects. Okay, and what that does is it balances out the characters, gives them strengths and weaknesses, and I feel this is a really great combination. And it also makes like groups of characters kind of mesh together and have differences. Okay, so that's aspects in a nutshell in their basic form. Like I said, not really much new compared to other RPGs out there, but I feel like it's a really nice streamlined setup. Okay, so let's go into might. Might is your raw physical power. It is also dealing with melee combat, so it is wielding melee weapons such as an axe, sword, dagger, spear, mace, club, anything you can get your hands on that is, within striking distance to another NPC, monster, whoever. And it also is brawling, so it can be, just punching, kicking, biting, wrestling, grappling, that kind of stuff. It is also about pushing, pulling, and breaking stuff. So again, just raw physical power, pushing something like a boulder or, bending bars or whatever that is in your game. Okay. So this is a really common aspect. It is used a lot in games, especially if you're running a lot of combat, because things get scrappy, and that is nothing new to RPGs. But a lot of people put at least a point into might if they're thinking they want to get, up close and personal with fighting monsters and stuff. So if you're a character making if you're a player making a character, some of the types that are gonna mesh well with might, like putting points into might, would be a fighter type, a barbarian, a knight, paladin, some kind of brutish brawler, or like a monk. Those are going to be the types that you're going to do well with if you put points into might. So if you put +1, that's committing, but it's not ultra powerful. If you really want to be really good at it, you got to put at least 2 or 3, +2 or +3 in that, and it'll make a big difference. Because that basically steps you up to another difficulty level. So it makes an average roll easy, okay, or a hard roll average, or an absurd roll hard. So it makes a huge difference. And just know that some items require +1 might to use. So if it's a really heavy suit of armor or a giant weapon, it's going to have a requirement for a +1 might, usually. There's not a lot of those in the book, but you're going to come across them. Okay, it's a way of limiting those types of items to characters that are stronger. Okay. Now, if you're going to make a character that has low might, that could be reflected in some kind of injury. Maybe you're old. Maybe you're sick, or maybe you're missing a limb. Something like that. So it's kind of an interesting thing to do if you put your minus points, your weakness points into might, to see how, what the story is of your character. So let those numbers tell the story of your character. So some things to think about. Now on the GM side of things, if you're looking to add might challenges, obviously the first choice would be melee combat, which is a no-brainer. You can put things in that are physical obstacles, say they need to break down a door, or something's in the way of a portal that they need to get through, that they need to move out of the way. Perhaps, the castle door is broken and there's a cart there, and they have the ability to push that cart in front of it so that the orc horde doesn't, go through it. So those kinds of things are going to be tests for might. And you can make it something that the group kind of contributes to as well. I know I don't have specific rules for dealing with that, but Grit is an open system that kind of allows you to come up with things on the fly easy enough. Perhaps if two characters are working together, it's just an easy might roll instead of an average might roll, or maybe it's average instead of hard. So that would be something you'd do for might on the GM side. Now the next one is prowess. Prowess is, let me kind of open my notes here. Prowess is kind of your refined physical actions. So it's still physical, but it's more refined. So anything that involves ranged combat, whether it's like fired or thrown weapons, requires prowess. Okay. And I'm going to move out of Grit Fantasy here and go into Grit Galaxies, but if you're shooting a rifle or a blaster or any kind of thing like that, it's going to be prowess. If it's firing a weapon on a ship, it would be prowess. Same thing with fantasy, like if there's some kind of ranged weapon, like a installed crossbow on a boat, like that would be prowess check. Prowess also includes jumping, climbing, dodging, like swimming, any of the kind of acrobatic, athletic type things that would be presented in a game. It also is about stealth too. So if you're trying to sneak around without making noise or without being seen, then a prowess roll would be required for that. Just another note too, that armor affects prowess. So if you decide to wear armor, it is going to reduce your prowess. Typical basic armor reduces prowess by how much soak it has. So if it has 1 soak, it's going to reduce your prowess by 1. And that is reflected directly to your character sheet. If you're wearing a huge heavy suit of like plate mail that has soak of 3, which is the maximum, you're going to have -3 prowess. Okay, so keep that in mind when you're building your character. Also know that some of the artifacts or better armor has less prowess penalty, sometimes not at all. So keep that in mind. That's an upgrade that you can run into in future games if you're running multiple session games or going through multiple session games. So one thing with this armor is that you could put points into prowess to simply kind of bypass or reduce that prowess penalty for armor. So like if you're a fighter type and you want to wear armor, but you don't want to get so feel bogged down by it, maybe a point or 2 in prowess would help. Okay. So PC types that use prowess, you would be looking at like a thief or a rogue or a ranger or an archer. Maybe an assassin or some kind of acrobatic character, and even a bard. Okay. Sneaky characters that throw knives or use a bow, or they tend to not be as direct in combat and kind of pull back and fire from a range. If you're a character or want to build a character that can kind of bypass physical obstacles, prowess is definitely worth putting points into. And I think it's one of the most important aspects in a character. Like even if you put +1 in it, it's going to help with that kind of stuff, because there can be a lot of physical obstacles that are added into a game. And speaking of that, on the GM side of things, terrain can be a big one for adding prowess checks. So like climbing a rock face to get to an entrance of a dungeon, or dodging traps that are in like some kind of dungeon type setting. Perhaps there are ranged ambushes from like a goblin troop that you have to have a ranged attack sort of exchange with. And it could be maybe excuse me, swimming across a river to avoid some enemies that are chasing you. Okay. Or maybe there's a treasure chest at the bottom of a pond and you have to swim down there. It would be prowess that you'd use for checking that. So prowess is a good one. Keep that in mind. Okay, the third one. We're going to look at valor. Okay. This one doesn't look very sexy. You're going to be like, I'll just put my -2 there and make it my dump stat. However, this can save your life. There are a lot of dangerous things out there in the world, in the perilous wilds, as I like to say. And valor can definitely help. It is basically your physical and mental resistance. In grit, your grit points, which are your health points, represent not only your physical stature, but also your mental resilience, okay? So you can die from fear or weird magic effects, okay? And valor is what you use to kind of roll against, okay? So this can look like something like resisting poisons, some kind of toxin or magic effect. It can also be, like I said, resisting fear and intimidation. Those are like the two kind of major, portions of this, or tests for this. So any kind of thing like that. So if you're a character or a player making a character, and you think you might want to skip valor, you might want to put a point into it, okay? And the types of characters that will fit well with this will be the paladin type, the knight type, chivalry, bravery, that kind of thing. That's all about valor, right? Could be a monk as well. Somebody who's trained in the martial arts, meditation, being calm and centered in the face of danger. Definitely some good things there for that. If you want to add, put minus points into valor, that could be age. It could be some kind of injury or curse. There's a lot of things that you can make this make valor feel real for the character. Okay. As far as the GM prep side of things is concerned, you have lots of options. You can introduce some kind of terrifying undead that drain the soul or the life force out of the characters. You can have poisonous plants or animals, cursed artifacts, magical area effects that they may need to make a valor roll or take damage, or some other effect can happen to them. So there's a lot you can put in your games that will test for valor. So keep it in mind. Don't forget about it. Number 4, insight. It's a pretty straightforward one. This is about sensory awareness. It's also about operating gadgets and devices. Okay. So you're going to be, testing sight, sound, taste, touch, that kind of stuff. It's going to be detecting ambushes, inspection, looking for things. It is also piloting. Okay. Now, piloting, I'm introducing into Grit Galaxies because obviously there are more vehicles. So vehicles are controlled by, insight tests, basically. Of course, you can have that if you have some kind of clockwork thing or steam-powered airship or something in your fantasy games, Insight would be the thing you use. Okay, and you're going to notice that a lot of like the gnome type artifacts require Insight to use. So keep that in mind. If you're a player looking to make a character and you want to do a scout or a thief or rogue, even a mage or ranger or archer type, Insight is a good thing to do. Okay. If you're looking at like putting your weakness points into Insight, it could mean that your character is a little dull-witted, maybe just not aware at all, or maybe they have a missing eye or something like that, and they just can't be aware of their surroundings as well. Maybe they're inept at devices. They have no idea how things work. A lot of possibilities there, but think about that. On the GM prep side of things, it's going to be nothing new for established GMs. If you have hidden traps or loot items or passages in your dungeons or whatever you're generating for your characters, that Insight is something that you would test for. It could also be extra info about the background of an area or the story setting or an NPC or even a monster or their abilities. If you want to introduce like a maze or a puzzle or some kind of riddle, you can use Insight to test on those things. Some of those things you don't really need to have the players actually solve if they're not comfortable with that. They could just make it roll. Not all of us like that. I'm one of them. I don't really like puzzles. So I would rather roll Insight to see if my character does it. Maybe my character's smarter than me, which is very likely. Okay, so that's Insight. Pretty straightforward, easygoing kind of thing to put into your games. It is very intuitive. Okay. And the last one is Command. So Command is your social skill. It is also like playing instruments. It is any kind of interaction with animals, including piloting animals. So, if you're trying to do animal handling type thing, Command would be the thing. It is also arcane magic. So any kind of staff, wand, magical shard, gems, that kind of stuff that has arcane magics embedded into it, Command is what you test for that. And of course, all those things are going to have that listed. If you need it, you need to use that for your tests or for activating them. But just know, arcane magic is Command. It is not Insight. That is a D&D thing, which would be somewhat like intelligence. But the idea is that you use power words or magical incantations to activate these things, and it requires Command. Okay. If you're a character, or I can't always say this, if you're a player designing a character, a bard would be a perfect fit. A mage, wizard, some kind of swindler type or rogue for lying and stuff. Because Command can be not only positive interactions. Maybe you're trying to swindle somebody. Maybe you're trying to lie, deceive, that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of options with that socially. If you're going to put minus points into Command, it could mean that you're just uncouth. You're just basically an asshole. Or maybe you're mute or some kind of, you're socially awkward. Maybe you're foreign and you don't really understand the language or customs where you are. There's options there, but some things to think about, Command can be a dump stat. I wish it wasn't. I wish sometimes that there would be more social interaction, less combat. So keep in mind that you can, as a GM, add more Command social interactions and test Command more. Okay. And I think this is a challenge for some GMs, maybe, to have like kind of break the mold of just less kill stuff and get stuff, and interact with monsters and NPCs and stuff in the game more, Okay, so yeah, we're kind of in the GM prep section, but yeah, just social encounters. It could be maybe there's a powerful monster that really would just destroy the group, but it has valuable information. Maybe it makes you do, or makes the characters go on quests for it, that kind of thing. Maybe it's you gotta escape and there's a wildebeest there and you have to like somehow befriend it and ride on its back. Requires command. Maybe you have interactions with guards. You're trying to get into a place and the characters need to sort of interact or intimidate them or lie about who they are and what they're about. So there are some things that you can add in your games that would really make it probably more interesting if you use command. Also know that maybe you can add some arcane devices, some kind of opening or closing a magical portal that requires some kind of magical incantation. Just know that elves are very good at command. They can use any number of focus dice when they roll make a command roll. So you could, if there's an elf in the party, have things for them to do for that. Okay. That pretty much wraps up everything I wanted to kind of cover with the aspects. I know it's pretty basic, simple stuff, but wanted to just put the awareness out there for all this. And if you think about it, try to challenge yourself to include at least one challenge of each aspect in your games if you're a GM. See how it goes. Let me know. That is all I have to say, and I hope you guys are out there enjoying your gaming. And if you have any questions or comments, please leave it below. And until next time, keep rolling those dice.